I love Starship Troopers, and the idea of blasting space bugs, gratuitous nudity, and awful dialogue just made such a great combination. Sans the full frontal and unintentionally hilarious dialogue, Chip Theory has just brought the ability for me to feel like I'm in Starship Troopers blasting space bugs to one deck of cards. Well, one deck of cards and 20 dice. It's all part of the 20 strong system. If you have no idea what the 20 strong system is, please go check out my video. It gives a quick overview of what exactly that system is. You will need to understand kind of the general idea of the system to understand the rest of this video. Of all the 3 decks released, I was actually most excited about Solar Sentinels. I think it's because I'd already played so much Too Many Bones and that it's my favorite game of all time, and I played Hoplo. I was just really excited to see what Chip Theory could do with a brand new IP and a brand new gaming system. So this was actually the first one that I got to the table, and actually it's probably the first one that I would recommend you get to the table. It comes with the 20 strong dice system, so regardless of what other decks you buy, either the Hoplo or Too Many Bones, you will get this, and it's a really great first play. It's probably the most basic, the least amount of rules overhead. So I love the art, I love the subject matter. My big question though is, how will Chip Theory do in bringing a brand new IP to life with just a deck of cards and 20 dice? If you know anything about Chip Theory, they're well known for the grandiose production, basically giant boxes, tons and tons of high quality content. All the content is actually just right here. So that is a big change, and it's going to take a lot to bring a new IP to life when I have the reference of all of the old IP done over a much broader scope. So I was skeptical on if this thing would hit for me or not. If you have that same question, stick around. I'm going to dive into what this game is, what makes this deck of cards unique, and if I like it or not. The main goal of this is to pretty simply beat one big bad bug. However, you can't just go out there and face it, of course. In Chip Theory fashion, you've got to go through the journey. You've got to level yourself up. Each of your heroes starts with 3 stats, but you're trying to level those stats up throughout the game. You're trying to acquire items by defeating the multi-purpose encounter cards. All of those cards either have an immediate effect or an item that you can put into the inventory, if you have room, of course, to be used at another time, or has an ongoing effect throughout the rest of the game. You're also trying to complete missions. They are a thorn in your side throughout this entire game. We'll get to that in a little bit. And you're able to go and activate that big bad if you can get through one of the 3 stacks that are in front of you. You see, when you set the game up, you divide out the encounters by 3 equal stacks. They are comprised of level 1 and level 2 bugs. Some bugs are orange. Those orange ones you have to activate. Otherwise, you can activate whatever you want. The one caveat to that is if it has this symbol on it, you have to activate another one. That could cascade into big time failure really, really quickly, because as you activate a card that has an add enemy symbol to it, you might uncover another orange that also has another add enemy symbol on it. So you have to select that one. And before you know it, you're completely surrounded with these alien bugs with only a hope and a dream to help you get through it. So what does a round actually look like here? It is selecting one of these enemies and then going into the engagement phase. Engagement has kind of 2 phases to it. First and foremost, a strategy phase. You select any number of dice that are in your pool, you commit them. The commitment is important because you will have to exhaust everything that you've committed. You roll them and you apply them. Each dice has a hit or a crit. Different items and special effects on these enemy cards will change the way the game plays completely, but in general, it's just rolling and applying hits to the enemies. If your strategy stat is above 1, you can rinse and repeat that process the number of times equal to your strategy stat. That's important as you're trying to kind of manage the number of dice that you are committing, and then eventually will have to exhaust in the next step, which is resolve. If you don't beat the enemy in front of you, you have to suffer damage, any other after effects on these cards. You have to exhaust dice, and then you can recover the number of dice equal to your recovery stat. You also gain your item rewards at that time, and then clean up. You discard any of the enemies that you didn't defeat, and you rinse and repeat and continue to move through those stacks. And that's kind of the entire game. Of course, in true chip theory fashion, there is a wrinkle. You can't just mow through these alien bugs thinking you can get right to the big baddie so easily, because there's 4 missions. Those missions have to be completed in order, unless of course you have some form of alteration on those, and they're not easy. They kind of suck. And depending on where you are with your game, it honestly could be impossible. In my last play, my very first mission was to end a round with 1 heart. I had just gotten an upgrade to boost my character up to 6 hearts, and then the very next mission after that is to suffer 1 damage on 3 different encounters. It took me a while to actually get to the point where I was getting down to 1 heart, and then I got to the second mission where I have to suffer 1 damage 3 times, and I couldn't find a card that actually allowed me to recover any sort of health to be able to do so, because if I suffer the 1 damage, then I die. So you can see that that was kind of impossible for me. I had to forego that and go straight to the boss, and that boosted the boss. You see, for every single mission you don't complete, you have to add another enemy to that boss encounter. The boss encounter is already having you adding 1 to 3 other enemies. Luckily for me, I didn't get the +3 activation bad guy, because that would have had 6 out there, but it's still a ton to manage if you don't get through those missions. A very similar mechanic exists in the Too Many Bones deck and the Hoplo deck, where what you do in the kind of core game affects that in-game battle. This is the most simple implementation of that though. There are 6 heroes, and I actually love all of them. I don't think they're overly complicated, and if I were to blind draw any of them, I'm happy with that. Spoiler alert to my other reviews, that is not the case with the other 2 decks. I think there's clear winners and losers there. I think everything in the Solar Sentinels felt really good to me. They come with baseline stats with the other heroes and the other decks, and they also come with a special ability similar to the other heroes and the other decks. And like I said, I think they're all great. So for the end game bosses, there's only 4 of them. The variety and level of interest from one to the next is probably on the lower side compared to the other decks, and especially the way that they implement that kind of mission escalation system based upon if you complete a certain number of them. I think in the other 2 decks, it's done in a more interesting way because it's variable to each and every boss you fight. Those other bosses are utilizing that mechanic in totally different ways, where this one with only 4 bosses and all of them using that mission mechanic in the same exact way, where you're just simply adding more and more baddies to have to fight in that end game. I would say kind of like replayability and variability might be capped a little bit for some people there. So in general, this system rocks. I will say that in every single review. I love the system. It's got a ton of potential. And in general, spoiler alert, I will continue to buy these decks as I find them interesting. I think this particular deck, it's the most simple implementation. It's fun. It has a ton of strategy kind of layered into what are pretty simple rules. Every time you're making a selection, you're kind of doing the math. Do I even have enough dice in my active pool to defeat this, especially if I have to activate another one? And sometimes depending on what you reveal underneath it could totally change how you would have gone about it. So it's not perfect information. You're also trying to take into account, how does the mission I'm trying to complete fit in my selection? How does the reward fit into what I need? Are any of these rewards worth it? Are the effects on that particular enemy going to outweigh the benefit that I get in that reward? There is a lot of agency and decision. It's not just rolling dice, adding up hits, and defeating the baddie. There's tons of alterations. With that said, when you get a bunch of the enemies out there and you have all of these different alterations kind of activating at the same time, it can be hard to kind of keep it straight and make sure that you are essentially playing by all of the altered rules, because the baseline rule set is absolutely altered based upon what's on the enemy card, the items that you have, and the effects that they are having throughout your battle. It can be a lot of kind of mental upkeep, at least. I mean, the cool thing though is all of those decisions and complexity and kind of friction that the game throws at you is built into a really simple rule set. There's not a ton of overhead that you're trying to balance outside of kind of what's being presented to you in that particular encounter. And at the end of the day, I think the vote for my favorite deck is a toss-up with one other. You'll have to watch my other reviews to see which one that is. However, when I think about the simplicity to get this to the table, the very low kind of need to refresh on rules, and that it's just a new, fresh IP, this one might be hitting the table more often. Is it the best design? I don't know. You're gonna have to check these two videos out to see which one I think is incredible and which one disappointed me a little bit. And on that note, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.